The Atlantic Ocean stretched endlessly, its waves reflecting the golden glow of dawn as Christopher Columbus stared at the horizon. The year was 1492, and Europe was buzzing with rumors of unknown lands across the seas. Columbus, a man driven by ambition, faith, and dreams of glory, believed that sailing westward would lead him to the riches of Asia. His fleet, 3 small ships, the Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, battled violent storms, unpredictable winds, and the skepticism of his crew. Nights were filled with fear, murmurs of mutiny, and prayers whispered into the dark. Columbus, however, held on to his vision. Beyond this vast expanse, he often told himself, lies glory that will shine for generations. After weeks of perilous sailing, the lookout finally shouted, "Land! Land ahead!" On October 12, 1492, Columbus set foot on an island in the Bahamas. The land was lush, teeming with strange birds, towering trees, and people unlike any Europeans had ever seen. The Taino people greeted the newcomers cautiously, curious yet wary. Columbus saw potential, gold, spices, and dominion for Spain. The seeds of European colonization had been sown. But for the natives, this arrival marked the beginning of upheaval. The Taino, with their sophisticated villages, farming techniques, and spiritual traditions, could not imagine the profound changes the Europeans would bring. Disease, conquest, and forced labor would soon disrupt their lives irreversibly. By the early 1500s, Spanish conquistadors poured into the Americas. Hernán Cortés led a small but determined force into the heart of the Aztec Empire. The Aztecs, with magnificent cities and intricate social structures, initially welcomed the Spaniards with gifts, unaware of their deadly intentions. Cortés, cunning and ruthless, formed alliances with rival tribes. Through warfare, betrayal, and the devastating effect of smallpox, the mighty Aztec Empire fell in 1521. Meanwhile, Francisco Pizarro marched into the Andes confronting the Inca Empire. Despite the Incas' advanced civilization, they were no match for Spanish firearms, horses, and greed. By 1533, Pizarro had captured the Incan emperor and seized immense treasures. Spain's wealth and power surged, fueling further expeditions across the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. The Europeans brought with them more than soldiers. They introduced missionaries aiming to convert native populations to Christianity. Churches rose beside temples and indigenous customs were suppressed. Native languages, traditions, and religions were threatened as European culture spread like wildfire across the New World. While Spain conquered the South, Northern America remained a frontier of mystery. The French, driven by trade and exploration, sent Jacques Cartier along the St. Lawrence River in search of riches and a passage to Asia. French fur traders established alliances with local tribes, learning survival techniques and forming trade networks. England, meanwhile, attempted its first colony at Roanoke Island, 1585, led by Sir Walter Raleigh. The colony mysteriously disappeared, leaving behind only the cryptic word Croatoan carved into a tree. The mystery of Roanoke would haunt English ambitions for decades, but it also highlighted the dangers of settling the unknown lands. The Dutch, too, began exploring, mapping coastlines, and seeking trade opportunities. By the turn of the 17th century, Europe had firmly set its eyes on the continent, each nation plotting how to gain power, land, and wealth. The year 1607 marked a turning point. England established Jamestown, its first permanent colony in Virginia. The settlers, mostly gentlemen unaccustomed to manual labor, struggled to survive. Disease, famine, and harsh winters decimated the population. Starving, they scavenged for food, relying on Native Americans such as the Powhatan tribe for aid. Among the leaders, John Smith emerged as a man of action, forging crucial alliances. The famous story of Pocahontas, daughter of Chief Powhatan, saving Smith from execution, became legendary, symbolizing the fragile coexistence of settlers and natives. Jamestown's survival hinged on the cultivation of tobacco, which would later become the economic backbone of the colony. Yet, the land was not easily tamed. Skirmishes with native tribes erupted, teaching settlers a harsh lesson. America's promise came with constant struggle. In 1620, a small ship named the Mayflower set sail from England, carrying nearly 100 passengers seeking religious freedom. These settlers, later called the Pilgrims, were determined to escape persecution in their homeland and start anew. Their destination was Virginia, but storms blew them far north, and they eventually landed at Cape Cod, in present-day Massachusetts. Life was immediately harsh. Winter approached, Food was scarce, and the dense forests and unfamiliar land posed enormous challenges. Many fell ill, and within months, nearly half of the original settlers had died. Survival depended on learning from the native peoples. The Wampanoag tribe, led by Chief Massasoit, cautiously approached the newcomers. Over time, a fragile alliance formed. The Wampanoag taught the Pilgrims how to plant corn, fish in rivers, and hunt local game. In 1621, after their first successful harvest, the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag celebrated together, a moment later remembered as the first Thanksgiving. While the Plymouth colony survived through cooperation with local tribes, tensions grew elsewhere. English settlements were expanding, and the native peoples began to feel pressure on their lands. Not all tribes welcomed the Europeans. Small skirmishes erupted as disputes over land, hunting grounds, and resources became unavoidable. In Virginia, conflicts like the Powhatan attacks, the 1622 Powhatan Uprising, showed how fragile peace could be. The Powhatan Confederacy, led by Opechancanough, launched a coordinated attack on English settlements, killing hundreds. The English retaliated with force, destroying villages and taking lands. These early wars set a grim pattern. Land disputes often turned deadly, and alliances were constantly shifting. Meanwhile, in New England, Plymouth's population slowly increased. Settlers built homes, farms, and small communities, but the fear of attacks always lingered. The Europeans' growing numbers and hunger for land meant that sooner or later, more direct conflicts with native tribes were inevitable. By the late 1620s, another wave of settlers arrived. The Puritans, a religious group aiming to build a city upon a hill, a society governed by strict religious principles. In 1628-1629, groups of Puritans began migrating to New England, preparing to establish the Massachusetts Bay Colony. These settlers were better organized and more numerous than the Pilgrims. Led by figures like John Winthrop, they brought families, skilled craftsmen, and a clear vision for a religiously guided society. Unlike earlier settlements, they were well-funded and prepared for long-term survival. Upon arrival in 1630, the Puritans quickly established towns such as Boston, Salem, and Charlestown. Their expansion inevitably created friction with native tribes. While the first interactions were mostly peaceful, land competition foreshadowed future wars, such as the Pequot War, 1636-1638, which erupted just a few years later.